Well, hello there. In this video, we're going to take a look at networking with OS2, specifically OS2 2.11. As always, we're doing all of this on real hardware, not on a virtual machine. Once again, we're using my IBM PC300GL from 1998 with the Pentium 2 400MHz CPU. OS2 2.11 doesn't come with networking out of the box. The extended editions of OS2 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3 did, but there was no extended edition for OS2 2.0 and upwards. Networking support was a paid-for add-on by way of additional software packages that you'd purchase from IBM or a software reseller. The same was true of OS2 Warp or OS2 version 3, and it wasn't until OS2 Warp Connect that you actually got networking support and a full TCP/IP stack without having to pay extra. You'll see that on this computer I've installed Microsoft Office version 4.3, and that's because I wanted to create a Microsoft PowerPoint to show what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and open that up. Networking in OS2 2.11. We're going to take a look at LAPs, LAN adapters and protocol support. Then we're going to install our 3COM driver. Then we'll install TCP/IP and do some test pinging. And finally, we'll install IBM Web Explorer and browse a few websites. Let's get started then. The first thing we need to do is install LAPs, or LAN adapters and protocol support. If you watched the previous video, you'll remember that we copied across a RIX Labs folder from the installation CD I created. This folder contains everything we need for this video. So we've dropped to a command prompt. We're going to CD into our RIX Labs folder, and then network, and then LAPs. And then we run LAPs, and we're going to install to drive C. And we can't configure this yet because we don't yet have a driver installed. So we just exit, and our next step will be to copy and place our 3COM driver so we can rerun LAPs configuration. So we CD into our 3C 509 folder. And then we copy the two EL files across to IBM Com Max. Now we CD into the folder in which LAPs was installed, we rerun lapsxc, and we configure it. We configure LAN transports. Now 3COM 3C 509 is also known as an Etherlink 3 card, and that's what you can see at the top of the list. So we make sure it's selected, and then we click Add. And then we add the TCP/IP protocol, and then we OK and exit. We let it update config.sys, and then we exit again. Now we need to reboot, so we'll go ahead and do that. Although we added TCP/IP in LAPs, we haven't actually installed it yet, so we need to go ahead and do that now. We're going to drop to a command prompt window, and we're going to CD into our TCP/IP installation folder. It's important here to change all files so that they're not read-only, otherwise the extraction process fails. So we use the attrib command for that. -r means change so they're not read-only, and /s processes all files in the subdirectories. Then we run tcpip inst.exe to install and configure TCP/IP. We're going to select everything because in theory that should also give us full TCP/IP support in both DOS and Windows as well as OS2, but there are a few quirks with the DOS and Windows support which we get to later. We untick LAPs because we've already installed it. Then we set this computer's host name, the subnet mask, its IP address, and the IP address of my router. OS2 TCP/IP didn't support DHCP until a much later version, so we can't use that here. You'll notice we haven't set DNS server addresses yet either. We have to do that later once TCP/IP has actually been installed. Okay, we need to reboot, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we've installed LAPS, our 3COM network card driver, and TCP/IP, so we should be able to ping some stuff. Let's drop to a command prompt. There's my router. There's Quad 9. And there's Google DNS. We can't ping by name. Well, you'll remember that when we were configuring TCP/IP, it didn't ask us for DNS server addresses, so it doesn't know how to resolve DNS names to IP addresses. We configure that by going to the new TCP/IP program folder that's been created on the desktop. Then TCP/IP configuration, then services, and then we add a couple of DNS servers. I'm going to use my own. You can use whatever you would use. As with many settings changes in OS2, there's no Save button. We're prompted to do so when we close the window. And now, if we drop to an OS2 command prompt again, we should be able to ping by name. And there we have it. You'll remember that we also installed TCP/IP support for DOS, so let's switch to a DOS command prompt and try pinging from there. There we go. And that's one of the quirks I was talking about earlier. The DNS servers we set earlier are supposed to take effect for DOS as well, but I haven't been able to get that to work. If you know what I'm missing here, then please pop a note in the comments. Well, now that we've got TCP/IP for OS2 installed, what can we do with it? How about a little web surfing? Yes, there is a web browser for OS2 2.1. It's called IBM Web Explorer, and it was born out of an IBM research project similar to Microsoft Labs. So let's get that installed. We're going to go back to an OS2 command prompt again, and we're going to cd into our Web Explorer folder. And then we run webinst.exe. I recommend that you don't install it into the base TCP/IP folder. It's best to install it into its own folder. So we're going to choose C OS2 Apps Web Explorer. Remember that OS2 programs, we can use long file names. Oh dear. Interestingly, this install program can't create more than one level of folders. Our error message is because the OS2 Apps folder doesn't exist. A little like modern day Windows, I install all applications into the equivalent of a Program Files folder rather than the root. I choose OS2 Apps for OS2 applications, WinApps for Windows applications, and rather predictably, DOS Apps for DOS applications. So we'll create the base OS2 Apps folder and try again. Once again, we change the folder to OS2 Apps Web Explorer. That's better. Web Explorer has modified our config.sys and put its folder name in a system-wide path variable, so now we need to reboot again. Alright, let's try a little web browsing. We've got a new folder on the desktop called IBM Internet Connection for OS/2, and in there we have Web Explorer. So let's launch that. Well, it turns out that add-on items like LAPS and TCP/IP also have their own fix packs or service packs, just like the base OS does. So let's go ahead and install the most recent fix pack for TCP/IP2. We drop back to our OS/2 command prompt. We cd into the folder that contains UN64092. That's our TCP/IP fix pack. And then we run each of those 4 executables in turn to extract the fix pack files. Then we run tcp-inst.exe to install the fix pack. We select the elements we want to update and click on install. OK, that's fine. OK, and then we reboot again. Now let's try Web Explorer again. That's OK. It's telling us there's no configuration file, which makes sense since this is the first time we've run Web Explorer. So we just click on OK. And there we have it, an empty Web Explorer window. There's no homepage set, so we just see a traditional IBM grey screen. Let's try browsing to our website. We click the yellow button in the toolbar that looks like an open folder button, and we're prompted for the website address. Unfortunately, most modern sites won't work. Remember that Web Explorer dates back to 1994. We'll try it anyway, so you can see the error message. Nope. Let's try HTTPS. And no again. Alright, let's try browsing to a much older site then. That's better. This is the default homepage of IBM Lotus Domino web server running on an OS/2 Warp server for eBusiness that I'm running. That really is what the default page looks like. We can take a look at a few others. Here's Windows NT 3.51. And also Windows NT 4. These are real sites. You can go to these yourselves if you run an OS/2 Web Explorer session. Well, that's it for this video. In a future video, we're going to install OS/2 LAN Requester and map some network drives to other computers on the network. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to be notified of new content. See you next time.